Is it possible that our world's academic psychology and primary school language and literacy education are implicit in nearly 720,000 deaths by suicide worldwide each year, millions of students being put through a school to prison pipeline, conditions of incarceration that amplify psychological injuries? Is it possible that education is implicit in indiscriminate random mass shootings, murder, personal dehumanization, and crimes against humanity around the world, war, and the rise of fascist America? Is it possible that education for a better world has reached a dead end? Are our classrooms sabotaging our students' natural and evolved cognitive emotional reprocessing mechanisms that are the foundation for individual health, well-being, and successful decision-making prowess and abilities? This is a presentation to explain the how, why, and need for cognitive emotional health education in our primary schools around the world. My name is Andrew Jackson, and I am founder and director of the Center for Symbiotic Psychology. This work is dedicated to the University of Wisconsin long-distance runner who committed suicide, Sarah Schultze. We taught her how to run, but not how to live. Before we begin, I would like to cover a couple definitions. The first being cognition. Cognition and cognitive behavior are about the activities of the mind. These are our thoughts, memories, beliefs, imaginings, and perceptions, etc. What goes on between the ears. Emotions are the feeling good or feeling bad perception of physiological changes and states of being in the brain and body. I grouped together emotions, attitudes, moods, and feelings because they all have a feeling good or feeling bad attribute. Whether we are a hiker, mountain climber, geologist, meteorologist, social scientist, or tourist, sailor, and poet, the mountain exists as we have been taught to believe. We are going to discuss the teachings and beliefs involved in the psychology and linguistics of emotionally driven behavior and emotional dysfunction. What do I mean when I talk about linguistics? Linguistics is the scientific study of language and its structure. Neurolinguistics examines the connection between the brain and language. Neurolinguistic programming refers to our neuroplastic brain, which has the lifelong capacity to change and rewire itself in response to the stimulation of learning and experience. With repetitious use in language and literary education, the psychology and linguistics of emotionally driven behavior forms a powerful and reflexive neurology of cognitive awareness and understanding, such that the belief in the idea of emotionally driven behavior becomes an unquestioned and accepted truth of human reality. The psychology and linguistics of emotionally driven behavior and emotional dysfunction can be traced back to Homer's Iliad, inscribed nearly 3,000 years ago. The first line of the Iliad is, Goddess, sing me the anger of Achilles, Peleus' son, that fatal anger that brought countless sorrows on the Greeks and sent many valiant souls of warriors down to Hades, leaving their bodies as spoils for dogs and carrion birds. For thus was the will of Zeus brought to fulfillment. Achilles' anger brought countless sorrows on the Greeks. Achilles' anger sent many valiant souls to Hades. Homer inscribes the emotion of anger as causal. Anger is the cause of Achilles' violent behavior. Over the last 3,000 years, we have developed a shared cultural and linguistic development of core beliefs and conceptual understandings of emotionally driven behavior and emotional dysfunction. How do the twists and turns of emotionally driven behavior drive the plot lines in these literary works? Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Dickens's Great Expectation, Poe's The Raven, Austen's Pride and Prejudice, the works of Shakespeare are even within our religious writings in the Bible, Quran, Torah, or Upanishads. The linguistics of emotionally driven behavior is foundational to the understanding and comprehension of a culture's literature, songs, movies, videos, plays, society, religion, and law. Today's primary and secondary school language and literary teachers are teaching and neurolinguistically programming our children in the psychology and theory of emotionally driven behavior, emotional regulation, management and control, and emotional dysfunction and disorder. The theory of emotionally driven behavior is the belief that dangerous emotions can drive destructive behavior and therefore emotions must be managed, regulated, and controlled by modifying cognitive behaviors or regulated with the use of pharmaceuticals if deemed necessary. The theory of emotionally driven behavior is the foundation of well researched and evidence based cognitive behavior modification therapies, where an individual changes and modifies their thoughts or other cognitive activities that changes how they feel and their behavior. The theory of emotionally driven behavior is also used in pharmaceutical therapies to mitigate biochemical imbalances in emotional disorders. Spoiler alert. Biochemical imbalances have evolved to exist when a person ignores or is taught to ignore the evolutionary and biological function of emotionally negative, bad feeling cognitive behaviors. This will be discussed further later on in the presentation. But for now, is the theory of emotionally driven behavior and emotional dysfunction and disorder correct? We watch the sun rise in the east, move across the sky, and set in the west. But are we witnessing the sun moving across the sky, or is the earth rotating? The earth seems flat, and we use flat earth road maps. Are we witnessing the earth as flat or as a sphere? We watch a character in a movie angrily attacking his oppressor. Are we witnessing emotionally driven behavior or is something else going on? What is the meaning and understanding of correct? It is an idea of being accurate, of being right, of being useful. That is, it works and conveys an understanding. Are the flat earth and sun is moving models of reality correct? They do provide understanding and are useful. Our city, state, and country road maps and our GPS screens are flat. We can use the sun is moving model to understand times of the day when the sun rises and when the sun sets. But is the flat earth model useful for circumnavigating the world? Would the old geocentric model, where the planets, sun, and stars revolve around the Earth, be detrimental to traveling across town, or across the country, or even navigating around the globe? Probably not. But how about for space travel to the moon, to Mars, or understanding of our galaxy? We might run into some difficulties believing the sun, planets, and stars revolve around the Earth. Let's look at the significance of evolving models and their use in understanding physics. With Newton, gravity is a force, as we witness an apple falling off a tree. With Einstein, gravity is a mass bending space-time, as is witnessed in the sun's gravity bending light from another star. Einstein also developed the equivalency understanding of mass and energy, which led to atomic energy and the atomic bomb. Now we are in a new world of quantum mechanics. Are gravity and mass but an electromagnetic force which would allow for human interstellar space travel? Currently, we are witnessing the dawn of the quantum computer with its unparalleled and unique computing power. But of note, Einstein, with all his brilliance, moving physics out of Newton's reality, rejected this new theory called quantum mechanics. Science is always evolving into a more expansive and inclusive awareness and understanding. Is this true for the science and psychology of emotionally driven behavior? The science and psychology of emotionally driven behavior is correct and is useful, but let's look at psychology's cognitive triangle. The cognitive triangle is a process flowchart that illustrates the interrelationships between thoughts, emotions, and behavior. Each influence the other and vice versa. At the base of the triangle, we show the concept of emotions driving behavior. Along the right side, we show that by changing your thoughts or changing other cognitive activities, your emotions will change. The cognitive triangle is the foundation for highly researched and evidence-based cognitive behavior modification therapies and pharmaceutical therapies to mitigate biochemical imbalances. What is the modern psychology of emotional dysfunction and disorder? It is the fundamental belief that dangerous emotions drive destructive behavior, and therefore emotions must be controlled, regulated, and managed by mind, which provides the foundation for cognitive behavior modification therapies. That is, change your mind and change your emotions and behavior. And if a person isn't capable or isn't taught to manage their own cognitive behavior, we have the benefit of pharmaceutical therapies. Mental illnesses like depression, mania, or schizophrenic tendencies are the result of a biochemical imbalance caused by emotional dysfunction. Pharmaceuticals are used in an attempt to control these biochemical imbalances. But something is not working. What went amiss for long distance runner Sarah Schultze, who committed suicide? Something is not working when, yearly, there are nearly 720,000 deaths by suicide worldwide. Millions of other people are being put through a school to prison pipeline. Conditions of incarceration are not conducive to healing, but instead amplify psychological injuries, and indiscriminate random mass shootings, murder, personal dehumanization, war, and crimes against humanity continue around the world, and we are witnessing the rise of a Nazi America. Something is terribly wrong and is not working in our world of highly advanced, researched, and academically acclaimed theory of emotionally driven behavior and emotional dysfunction. Can we improve the cognitive triangle? Might something be missing? How about the neurological, biochemical, and physiological changes and states of being in the brain and body? And if you look at your body's movement, it is a highly orchestrated changes in states of neurological, biochemical, and physiological being in the brain and body that drives behavior. And it is cognition, not emotion, that precipitates these changes in states of physiology that drives behavior and are perceived as emotions. These emotions, moods, and attitudes are perceived as good feeling or bad feeling. It is also important to understand that good feeling emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings have an evolved positive correlation with a healthy physiology, successful decision making prowess and abilities, and with constructive behavior. And bad feeling emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings have an evolved positive correlation with an unhealthy physiology, poor decision making prowess and abilities, and with destructive behavior. So, what is missing in psychology's cognitive triangle? The evolved correlations between emotions and physiology. Let's do a thought experiment. What would happen if our genetic ancestors went to climb a tree or ford a fast moving stream for food or went hunting the savannas of Africa if feeling good emotions, moods, and attitudes correlated with an unhealthy physiology and destructive decision making? Would climbing a tree, fording a fast moving stream, or hunting on the savannas of Africa be successful? Think of a good feeling, stumbling drunk, blissfully getting into his car to drive across town during rush hour traffic. It is not going to happen. What would happen if imagining these necessary foraging and hunting survival activities only brought on negative, bad feeling, emotions, moods, and attitudes? Would our ancestors leave home to hunt and gather, to feel bad? And what if breathing, eating, sleeping were to bring pain and discomfort? Would these correlations be conducive to genetic survival? If a thought or other cognitive activity such as memory, belief, imagining, perception, reasoning, etc., doesn't feel good, it isn't, biologically speaking. Positive, good feeling cognitive activities must have an evolved correlation with a healthy physiology. Negative, bad feeling cognitive activities must have an evolved correlation with an unhealthy physiology. If this were not so, humanity would not have survived the evolutionary mill. So, what's wrong with today's psychology of emotionally driven behavior and the cognitive triangle? Cognition, not emotion, precipitates the physiology that drives behavior and is perceived as good or bad feeling emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings. And therefore, instead of controlling emotional behavior, we can use our emotional awareness to find healthier, better feeling, or less bad feeling, thoughts, memories, beliefs, imaginings, perceptions, and evaluating activities. Emotions have evolved not to be controlled by the mind as we have been neurolinguistically programmed for the last 3,000 years, but to guide our cognitive behavior towards health, well-being, and successful decision-making prowess. I like to use a hot stove analogy. If an individual places their hand on a hot stove, there is a natural and evolved reflexive mechanism involving pain that forces us to remove our hand from the stove. Likewise, there is a natural cognitive emotional reprocessing mechanism that suggests that we remove our current thoughts or other cognitive behaviors off the proverbial hot stove. Our primary, secondary, and collegiate educators are reinforcing a limiting psychology of emotional control because of their own original neurolinguistic programming of emotionally driven behavior and dangerous emotions drive destructive behavior. Where does the theory of emotionally driven behavior go wrong? What is wrong, one, is the belief that emotions must be controlled because dangerous emotions drive destructive behavior. By controlling emotions or emotional awareness, negative, bad feeling, destructive cognitive behavior may continue unchecked by our natural cognitive emotional reprocessing mechanisms. Negative, bad feeling thoughts of destructive behavior can go unchecked. Manic or depressive thoughts can go unchecked. Thoughts of suicide and suicidal behavior can go unchecked. Ideology of revenge by murder, rape, mass shooting, or a war may continue unchecked. What is wrong too? Cognitive behaviors, not emotional awareness, precipitates our biochemical imbalances. Biochemical imbalances are a result of unchecked dysfunctional cognitive behavior. Pharmaceutical therapy that limits emotional awareness is sabotaging the individual's natural cognitive behavior control mechanisms, which depends on emotional awareness. What is wrong 3 is that there is an unrecognized defense against illness, infections, disease, and injury. By actively using emotions to guide cognitive activities towards good feeling behaviors, a person is actively influencing their own biochemistry towards a healthy biochemistry. If a person is unaware that their destructive, bad feeling, emotionally negative cognitive activities will continue to exacerbate their own biochemical imbalances, a person will disrupt a natural and evolved defense based on cognitive emotional reprocessing and management. What is wrong for is that if an individual doesn't understand that their own emotions are about their own cognitive activities, instead of controlling their own cognitive behavior to feel good, they are going to strive for the power to control their external world of people, places, and events. Feeling good becomes dependent upon controlling an external environment. Ideologies of power and control by sabotage, deceit, violence, aggression, and war at both the micro and macro levels are unchallenged. What is wrong 5 is that literacy can adversely affect natural cognitive emotional development for health, well being, and success. Current language and literacy education teach, promote, and actively train an individual into a belief in emotionally driven behavior and emotional control, regulation, and management, even with pharmaceuticals, which denies cognition as the true cause of their emotions, attitudes, moods, and feelings. What is wrong 6 is justice based on falsehood is itself false and unjust. Criminal law and criminal justice are erroneously based on the limiting linguistics of emotionally driven behavior and emotional, or lack of, control, i.e., crimes of passion and aggravated assault. Criminal law and justice should be founded on a more accurate representation of human behavior. Emotion does not precipitate the physiology that drives behavior. Cognition does. What is wrong 7 is the promotion of biased and skewed cognitive, emotional, and physiological research. Current psychological sciences, such as psychology, sociology, education, law, etc., and physiological sciences, such as psychiatry, neurology, biochemistry, pharmacology, and medicine, are not factoring into their experimental design the natural cognitive emotional reprocessing mechanism that has evolved to bring a person's physiology into health, well being, and successful decision making prowess. Experimental results will be skewed in favor of those individuals who have resisted their primary language and literacy education and their secondary and collegiate literary education and neurolinguistic programming into the ideology of emotional driven destructive behavior, emotional control, regulation, and management, and emotional dysfunction and disorders. What is wrong 8? Current sports performance psychology is based in emotionally driven behavior psychology, emphasizing emotional toughness and mindfulness training to become unreactive to negative, bad feeling emotions and thoughts while ignoring emotions' evolutionary role in creating a healthy physiology, well being, and successful decision making prowess and capability. Toughness training and mindfulness training that sabotage negative, bad feeling emotional awareness can lead to demotion and dismissal because of biochemical imbalances that exacerbate poor learning or even inability to learn, poor physical and mental health, poor attitude or inability to handle pressure, poor decision making, poor performance, mistakes, fouls, penalties, injury, sickness, extended recovery and healing, lowered self esteem, and depression, leading to suicidal behavior and death. How long will our academic institutions of education, language, linguistics, literature, psychology, sociology, philosophy, and law continue teaching a limiting cognitive emotional dynamic regulatory language based in a 3,000-year-old literary and religious linguistics when there are yearly nearly 720,000 deaths by suicide worldwide? Millions of other people are being put through a school to prison pipeline. Conditions of incarceration are not conducive to healing, but instead amplify psychological injuries, and indiscriminate random mass shootings, murder, personal dehumanization, war, and crimes against humanity continue around the world, and we are witnessing the rise of a Nazi America. What is cognitive emotional health education? Cognitive emotional health education means developing classrooms where teachers and coaches guide their students in finding less bad feeling cognitive activities, or finding better, good feeling cognitive activities that have an evolved correlation with health, well being, and successful decision making prowess and abilities. Cognitive emotional health education should be an integral part of existing curriculum, teaching, and coaching activities, not separate from current curriculum and coaching activities. As an author or playwright directs each character's cognitive emotional reaction to their story's synchronicity of people, places, and events, so too can literary education teachers demonstrate how each student can redirect their own life's cognitive emotional story and activities towards constructive, feeling good thoughts, memories, beliefs, imaginings, perceptions, and reasonings that lead to health, well-being, and successful decision-making prowess and abilities, as well as the synchronicity of events that bring people, places, and circumstances together for a successful outcome. For review, bad feeling emotions, moods, and attitudes have an evolved correlation with an unhealthy physiology, poor decision making, and destructive behavior. And good feeling emotions, moods, attitudes have an evolved correlation with a healthy physiology, successful decision making, and constructive behavior. And every individual can cultivate and develop their own natural and evolved cognitive emotional reprocessing understandings, abilities, and beliefs. What can teachers and coaches do for their students? Every teacher and coach should have their own toolkit and skill set to maintain their own cognitive emotional health, well-being, and successful decision-making prowess and capacity. Here are but a few suggestions and ideas to do something for yourself that feels good. Develop hobbies and extracurricular activities. Go places, travel, go for a walk, get to the gym, go on rampages of appreciation, dwell and focus upon the good feeling aspects of whatever. Do acts of kindness, write, creative writing, journal writing, etc. Play an instrument, sing, or go into other artistic venues. Make use of personal religious ideas and beliefs. Have meditation and breathing exercises. Use touchstones. Practice I am statements of empowerment. Self talk. Practice stopping the mind. Don't go there. If all fails, find professional therapy and counseling. Here are some ideas for understanding what it means for developing your cognitive emotional reprocessing skill set. The idea is to have the skills to find better feeling thoughts or other good feeling cognitive activities for turning pain into gain. 1. Restate and refocus from an unwanted, feels bad to a wanted, feels good desire and intended outcome. 2. Reframing. Make lemonade out of lemons. 3. Reevaluate wants, desires, and intentions. 4. Understand how the intent emotion relationship establishes what feels good and what feels bad. If climbing Mount Everest, I want an ice axe, which feels good, not a claw hammer, which feels bad. Maybe this is not the year to climb Mount Everest. That is, no matter what you do, you can't get into a good feeling place for doing that. 6. Reassess inherited personal, institutional, and religious beliefs and logic. 7. Use feels good religious and secular teachings for compassion, love, and forgiveness. 8. Learn to stop. Don't start down that negative, bad feeling rabbit hole. 8. Learn to dwell within the good feeling place of success. 10. Use the not wanted to define and to focus on that which is wanted and desired. The Black Dog Institute in Australia uses student anxiety in primary schools as an indicator of potential future mental health issues. That is, if a student doesn't have the skills to move out of anxiety now, they won't have the skills in the future for more serious traumas. What can teachers and coaches do for their students? They can know, understand, and have the skills to utilize their own cognitive emotional reprocessing mechanisms. Because joy has an evolved correlation with health, well-being, and success, we have evolved to be joyous beings. All my reference material and text are freely downloadable as PDFs from my website, symbioticpsychology.com. My technical paper is on the left. It includes the main arguments and discussions I have just presented. It is entitled Cognitive Emotional Reprocessing Control, Cultivation, and Education, the Linguistic Semantics of Cognitive versus Emotional Dysregulation. Also in this paper is the supplement Dangers, Hazards, and Liabilities of Homer's Theory of Emotionally Driven Behavior. On the right is the main text, Cognitive Emotional Health Education, a primary and secondary school overview. And for the sports-minded, such as athletic directors, coaches, and athletes, I have The Personal Power of Chi, an athlete's evolutionary heritage of strength, speed, agility, and success. And on the right is its workbook, Baguba, Sports Psychology and Training Manual for all directors, athletes, and coaches. And for those who would like to understand my personal side of symbiotic psychology, I have written a short biography, Dark Night of the Full Moon, Surviving the School of Hard Knocks. I would either realize a new psychology of emotional behavior and live or die in the confines of a 3,000-year-old linguistics of emotional behavior. Every teacher and athletic coach must have the skills, abilities, and knowledge to maintain their own cognitive emotional health, well-being, and successful decision-making prowess. A parent, teacher, or coach cannot pass on the skills they themselves do not have. I give you thanks for listening to my presentation. I hope you now understand the need for cognitive emotional health education in our schools. If you wish to further explore the next generation of human emotional psychology, please visit my website at symbioticpsychology.com.